such a horrible way to start. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. This is such a big crowd. Many more than I anticipated. So for the sake of my anxiety, if I could have half of you leave, that would be great. I already know the ones that I pick. Joking, comedy. No, thank you. I really appreciate you coming here. I had a lot of people ask me, following up to this, what my inspiration for comedy was, and I think about back to a conversation I had with my brother's college roommate about 4 years ago. It was really poetic. He said to me, you know, Sarah, you tell a lot of jokes. It's like your thing or something. And so, being the people pleaser I am, it's my thing or something now. I'm just glad that he didn't, see me, peeling potatoes, and then I would have to peel potatoes for everyone. And only half of you would be here, and that half would only be here because you were here for the free mashed potatoes that I obviously made afterwards. No, great. It's great. Thank you so much again for coming and supporting. I'm so excited to see you guys. So like Chad said, my name is Sarah Johnson, and yes, I am also upset with my parents about that. Sarah Johnson, and whenever I complain about my name to my mom, she always says the same thing. Sarah, it has so many different meanings. It has so much meaning to it. And yes, it's true. I will walk you through Sarah Lynn Johnson, my entire name. Sarah meaning princess, Lynn meaning beautiful waterfall, and Johnson meaning son of John. Let's start with Johnson. I'm mad at this name for so many reasons, mostly because I'm a feminist, and I just imagined a conversation in the 1900s between Judd and his soon-to-be wife, Betty. They're at dinner, and they're thinking about last names that they could get together, and Judd's like, hey, honey, how about, you know how my dad's name is John? And Betty's like, yeah. And then Judd's like, and you know how I'm his son? And she says, yeah. And he's like, how about Johnson? And she's like, really? That's so lame. My mom's name is Virginia. How about Virginia daughter? And he's like, well, you don't get a vote because it's the 1900s. And they move on. And so and then he does feel bad for her eventually and says, hey, if we ever have a little girl, we can name her Sarah, which means princess, which is part of the matriarchy. And she's a little bit satisfied until she meets with her friend Rebecca, who is also having a baby girl. And the baby girl, she finds out, is named Raina. And does anybody know what Raina means? Queen, yeah, it means queen. You mean you could have gone up higher in the matriarchy and you settled on Sarah? That's so rude. That's so rude. So, Betty is upset like I am. And that brings us to my middle name, Beautiful Waterfall. And how I imagine this comes about is everyone is surrounded by, standing around little Princess Sarah's bassinet. And they see her, and they're like, hey, you're so beautiful. But are you ever gonna stop crying? You're crying constantly, and I've never stopped. It's been 27 years, and I'm still crying to this day. I cry a lot. It's an excessive amount. That's how my emotions seep through, and how I relay my emotions is through crying. The most recent thing that I've been crying about is I recently went through a breakup, and it's been sucky. We've had breakups through the dawn of time, and yet no one knows how to respond to breakups. Still, I get the same 5 cliches every single time, and one of those cliches is I'll be crying, and I'll be like, dude, I can't believe you broke up with me. And my friend will be like all supportive and will be like, Sarah, because you're crying, that means that it was real. I'm like, man, I cried over a can of cream corn one time. I'm pretty sure I wasn't in love with that can of cream corn. Or maybe I was, because, cream corn is the best. And you might be wondering, why on earth was this girl crying over canned cream corn? And I'll tell you, because I'm pretty sure that all my mental illnesses are out to get me, and they hold hands. And I'm like, let's get her, guys. And that started with ADHD. I was making dinner one night, and I had a can of cream corn because I was making corn cake. Anyone familiar? It's super good dessert. Basic early 2000s. Yeah, he gets it. That's my brother. It's very specific crowd work I'm doing. So I set out to make my corn cake, and I set the can on the counter, and this is when my ADHD swoops in, and my ADHD just likes to forget, important things that I probably should know, and it's just like, nope, into the abyss, you don't need that anymore, and it's pretty awful. So I set down my can of cream corn, and I turn around to do something else. And I turn back to my can of cream corn, and it's gone. It has never existed. I have no idea where it went. But today, the mystery continues. There's scientists on the search for my cream corn. To this day, nobody knows. And so that's when my anxiety seeps in. And it's like, oh my gosh, Sarah, you can't find a can of cream corn? Oh my gosh, where are you going to get anywhere in life? You're freaking out, man. And then my depression comes in, and it's like, you worthless piece of trash. You can't even make dinner. What a sob story. And then that is when my lady hormones are like, step aside. Let's make her cry for hours. And so I do. I cry. I cry for a good 20 minutes because canned cream corn. And thank you. And that's all I have for you. Thank you. You've been an awesome crowd. Just kidding. That's a joke. Almost all of it. So that is the silly stuff I cry about. That's only one of the stupidest things I've cried about. I've cried about so many other things, but the other stories I want to share with you is it still makes me tear up to this day. I was watching a video. It's called People at a Potluck Meal. It's a skit about people at a potluck meal and the different kinds of people that go to a potluck meal. And one of the people in the bit was just, I swear he was a method actor. He did really good. I'm pretty sure they just drug him off the street, and they're like, hey man, you look like you haven't eaten in 20 years. Let's have you, that's impossible, but you haven't eaten in 20 years, and let's have you in the skit. And he's like, what is the skit about? And they're like, people at potluck meals. And he's like, that sounds good. That sounds like I'm going to eat, right? And they're like, no, you are going to be the person at the end of the potluck meal. So the scene, and he doesn't get to eat, and that's why I cried. The scene is that he's at the end of the line of the potluck meal, and he's looking at all the empty casserole dishes in front of him, and the happy people who are eating, and he's just so sad, and you see it in his face, and it's just deep, this is real for this man. And I'm just so overcome, and I just sob. And I sob, and I call my brother, my youngest brother, and I'm like, hey Daniel, because he gets it. He gets why I cry. And he says, and I tell him the story, I'm like, hey, I was watching a video about people at a potluck meal. It's a skit about people at a potluck meal. And I explained the whole thing to him, and he's so sweet, and he's like, hey, so I'm going to send you a video of my favorite thing ever. It always makes me excited. It always makes me happy when I see this video. So he sends the video. The video is of Boris Johnson sitting in the rain at a funeral. Already we're off to a terrible start. What the heck? You are going to give this poor girl who's sobbing, and you think this is going to make her feel better? Anyway, so I'm still mad about it. We're still seething. But, so the video is Boris Johnson is sitting in the rain at a funeral, he has an umbrella that's closed, and he offers it to the lady who's sitting next to him. And she politely declines, and so he opens it for himself. But what he goes to open it for himself, but the thing like on the cartoons happens, and it folds inside out, and that sent me. That was just so sad, and I sobbed for a good 20 minutes. I paused the video, by the way, and then just like started sobbing. I called my mom, and and she's like, oh my gosh, honey, what's wrong? And like, Boris Johnson was sitting in the rain, and he was just so sad, and his umbrella broke, and the lady he offered the umbrella to, and she didn't accept it, and he didn't deserve that. And anyway, all that to say, I hate my name. And it's just, okay, here's the thing too, is my mom would always say, Sarah, it's biblical. Which is true, it's biblical. It's a biblical name, not justification for naming your child something that's biblical. Biblical names are not always good names. And this is what I have. Okay, in case no one knows who I was named after Sarah in the Bible. And her story goes that she's like 100 years old, and she is, her husband and her are so old. He's, at the time, his name is Abram, and she is Sarai. And God says to Abram, I'm going to make you a father. And Sarah hears this, and she laughs. And she's like, ha, no, that's not how biology works. And God is like, joke's on you, I am God. And he tells her, ma'am, why are you laughing? This is biblically accurate, look it up after. He says, ma'am, why are you laughing? You're going to be a mother. You're going to be a mother, and your husband, Abram, is going to be a father of many. And you're going to be a mother of many. And Abram is going to be now Abraham, and you are now going to be Sarah, which seems flattering, but in your long line of lineage, there's going to be about 1 million Sarahs, and you're going to fade into the background. Okay, so you learn how to laugh at God? Okay, this is what happens. You get lost in the background. And the funny thing about this story, you just heard me talk to you for 5 minutes about how I cry at every single thing. And now I'm supposed to live up to this lady who laughed at God, who had the nerves. Mom, you birthed me, handed me anxiety, and now I'm to live up to this lady who laughs at God? I have anxiety ordering pizza over the phone. I have anxiety now. It's always there. How am I supposed to have the guts? How am I supposed to have the guts? No one knows. No one knows. To this day, I'm still crying. But I would like to, that was kind of sad. Let's go on to one of my smaller traumas. I have 3 brothers, and everybody growing up asked me, what is it like growing up with 3 brothers? And I would always have the same response. My response would be, it's like growing up with 3 personal bodyguards who also turn on you sometimes. So like no one was allowed to make fun of me. No one was, well, plenty of people were. But like if you ever stepped to me, like they would have my back. Imagine this: a 7-foot tall man comes. He's big, burly. He comes up to me. He starts messing with me, and my brothers are there in an instant to protect me, to come between this 7-foot tall man and me and protect me. Also, so what is it like growing up with 3 brothers? It's like growing up with 3 personal bodyguards who also turn on you and who also have arachnophobia. And so imagine this. A 1-inch spider with 8 legs comes up to me and starts messing with me. And my brothers are like, nope, you're on your own, sorry. We're in a different planet. Bye now. I was the only one in my family growing up who didn't have arachnophobia, which was super cool and worked in my favor more often than not. I did do a lot of spider killing. That was pretty fun. I was like 5 years younger than my oldest brother, and he was like, Sarah, there's another spider. And I'm like, I got you, Stephen, as like a little toddler. Okay, ouch. So this worked in my favor many times. One time I was hanging out with friends, my brother would drop me off. I was probably about 16 at the time, and during hanging out with them, I found a plastic spider. Okay, so it's like a cupcake topper, so it has like a ring on it and then a spider on top. And the spider is about 3 inches big. It's big, and it does not look real unless you are a good distance away. But so, the important thing about this to note later on in the story is this ring band had a slit in it, and that's important to the story. But, so I find this spider, and I'm like, I'm gonna mess with my brother so good. And so I cuff it in my hands, and I'm gonna mess with my brother, and it's gonna be so good. And I cuff it in my hands, and before he even gets the chance to see it, he's like, get away from me, I don't want to see it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I waited 17 years for this moment where I would randomly find a plastic spider. And I didn't even need it. I could have just cuffed my hands. And no one would have been wiser. I waited for my moment. Let me have my moment. Anyway, so he comes up to me, or he's backing away, and like, you want to see my spider? And I keep itching like closer and closer towards him. And then he screams. And he wets his pants, and it's funny, and we leave, and it's a good time, and everyone's happy. Well, I am anyway. So I get home, and I still have the spider because why would I not harass the rest of my family with it? And so I take it, and I'm looking around the house, and I find that I'm looking for a spot to put my spider, and I'm walking around the house, and I find, okay, so something you need to know about the layout of the house is we have the kitchen, and then we have the bathroom, and then we have my brother's bedroom. And I'm like, we're gonna look in the bathroom for a place to put the spider because where else would we put it? So I go into the bathroom, and I see the perfect spot. It's a towel holder in the bathroom. And it's a ring, and remember the slit in the band of the ring? I put it on to the towel holder, and then I leave the bathroom, and I wait because I'm not a psychopath, and I'm not gonna monitor everyone's drinking habits. So it's up to odds, everything's up to odds, and I go into my brother's room, and I play video games. I'm playing Super Smash Brother as Kirby. I suck people up, I walk off the edge, I spit them out, and then I flow back to the top, and that's my move. And I crush it. I crush it every time. Everyone hates me, but to this day, I still crush it. Yeah, well, of course my first heckler would be my brother. So, I'm playing video games, and I hear from the background, dang it, Sarah! And I run out, and I see this plastic spider flying across the room, and then followed by my brother walking out. And it is my oldest brother, the one who I'd gone earlier with the spider. And as fate would have it, that's what happened, honest truth. So, I'm gonna backtrack a little because I forgot a little bit about Sarah. So Sarah, having the name Sarah is just I'm afraid that one day when I become a famous comedian, so in probably a half hour, we'll have the population, because it's such a popular name, and it's such a popular name. And there's so many Sarah Johnsons out there, and that's why it bothers me. But so I just imagine, God forbid, I go missing and there's an APB out on a blonde Sarah Johnson. I'm never gonna be found again. It's over for me. The blonde Sarah Johnson community is not a smart community. They will all congregate to the police station and they will be like, I'm Sarah Johnson Blonde, I'm turning myself in. And the police state will just be like, man, I don't have the energy for this. We are done. Sarah Johnson found. Bravo. And meanwhile, I'm just going to be in the woods with an axe in my back. And that's going to be it for Sarah Johnson. But for you who are concerned for my safety, don't worry because there are 50 more Sarah Johnsons. I'm pretty sure God gets us at like the 52 pack at Costco, and he's just ready, like, all right, her heart rate is dropping, she's a goner, and then he just rips it open and then sends everybody, all the Sarah Johnsons of the world to him. Ladies and gentlemen, homeschoolers, that is how babies are made. It's rough being Sarah Johnson. Yeah, and that's my legacy. Like, you can take the Sarah Johnson out of this world, but 50 more will spawn in her place. Like, that's just how it works. Like, don't be sad about my death. You can just go find another Sarah. Like, it'll be fine.
Not one like you.
Heckler number 2, I see you. That's so nice. It's like I paid her to do it or something. $50 later, I'm pretty sure Chad put money in the box. They got you. Anyway, so being a Sarah Johnson is rough. Back to pranking people. It was a very good time. It's weird pranking people. Like, I enjoy it just as long as it doesn't go too far. Maybe it did go too far with spiders, but I don't know. Who am I to judge myself? So, did you know that you can accidentally prank people? That's bonkers to me. That's something that I learned. A couple of years ago, I was sitting in class I was sitting in class with my classmate, Linda, I guess, and we were sitting between classes. Yeah, you got a real name, Steven, but I'm making up everyone else's. Because everyone knows you, probably. That's a lie. I feel like maybe. I don't know. So Linda and I are sitting in between classes. It's between periods, so class has ended. And it's just us. She's scrolling on her phone. I'm reading a book. She's scrolling on her phone. And she's talking to herself, but out loud. Can you guys hear me okay? I feel like I keep it. Okay, perfect. So she's scrolling on her phone, talking to herself out loud, and she's like, "Ma'am, I wanted to know what the temperature outside is, but I can't, my weather app isn't working." And mind you, it's like April, and I tell her, because I thought it would just be a funny thing to say, I just said to her, "Linda, do you know that there's a cool hack for this actually? So if you can tell the outside temperature by taking the inside temperature and subtracting 7 from it, and that'll give you the outside temperature." And she's like, "Huh," and looks at the thermostat, and she's like, "Oh, so it's 62 in here?" And I was like, yeah, yes it is. And I go back to reading my book, and she goes back to rolling on her phone, and 5 minutes goes by, and at this time, I'm getting pretty concerned, because that's absurd. And another 5 minutes goes by, and I say, "Hey, Linda," and she goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do you know that, that thing about the temperature was a joke? And that's not how that works?" And she's like, "What? Sarah, you're so mean!" I thought it would have been obvious. All right, just if you had thought about it for 3 more seconds, let's just say, all right, you can subtract 7 from the inside temperature, and that gives you the outside temperature. If you had just thought about it for 3 seconds, you would have figured out a couple things that I figured out pretty quickly too. Is that, 1, everyone keeps their house at a different temperature, so that doesn't even work. 2, that means you could change the outside temperature by just changing the inside temperature. 3, what temperature is it in your house when it's -7 outside? What are we doing? It could be summer all year long. If we just set our thermostats to like 77, it would be a nice 70 outside. But what I really wish had happened is that I had just said nothing. I had let my concern just pass away like every other thought I have, and I would just let her go with it and go into public with that knowledge and just share it with everybody, because who's better at telling the truth than someone who's believing a lie? And that's how humanity ends. Just kidding. It's probably the Sarahs we're probably going to take over. Yeah, that was improvised, I'm sorry. Yeah, you might be thinking, Sarah, this is awfully cruel that you would play pranks on people, like seeing your brothers like that. That is not cool. Why are you being so cruel? And I would say, no, I'm not being cruel. I'm helping the economy. And you would say, how are you possibly helping the economy in this instance by playing pranks? Job security for their therapists, right? Like, I mess them up a little bit. Their therapist gets to keep their job. I get pleasure out of it a little bit. It's a win-win for everybody. But don't worry, don't feel too bad for them. I have plenty of people in my life who are also job security for my therapists. I am in therapy, or have been in and out of therapy for 8 years, and I totally recommend it to everybody. Finding a good therapist and being able to talk about your feelings is such a good thing, and something that I will forever preach about. So the therapist that so I've been in and out of therapy for the last 8 years, and the last thing, I've been out of therapy for a little bit now. And how I realized I needed to get back into therapy was I was talking to a friend, and I was going through some issues, and I was just telling her about all these problems, and I said, yeah, like, I'm just having a really hard time, and she says to me, Sarah, I feel like it's time for you to find a therapist again. I feel like that would be very helpful. And I said to her, you know what I think? And she said, and I said, I think everyone else should go to therapy for a while. I've been in and out of therapy for 8 years. I feel like other people need to start healing. And then I heard myself say it, and I was like, no, you're the problem. Go to therapy. So I found a therapist. I go to discount therapy, and some of you are probably like, yeah, it's pretty obvious. Discount therapy. Discount therapy is like any other therapist, but it's just that they don't have their master's yet, and they're just interning. They don't take insurance, so it's all out of pocket. It's very good. It's very good. They do a great job. Janine's doing her best. She's just like a little baby therapist, just doing her thing. We're so proud. They're like a normal therapist, like I said. There are just some things that hang them up sometimes. They're like, I'm so sorry, sir, I'm gonna have to refer you to someone else. I just have not gotten to the chapter on cream corn. That is a lot. I didn't even know that was a thing, so please hang in there. I'm gonna go get my doctorate as well. We might need that for the cream corn. No, going to therapy is great. I really, really love it. And go to therapy, everybody. If you get nothing else, if you don't laugh one single time, go to therapy. Find a good therapist, because not all therapists are gonna match with you. And that's the hard thing about going to therapy, is finding the right therapist. But so I'm back in therapy. For any of you who haven't been in therapy or know much about therapy, I will describe it to you. So imagine this. You're decapitated and you go into the hospital, and you say to the doctor, hello, doctor. And they say, hello, patient. What can I do for you? And you say, one decapitated head, please. And they say, ooh, that is a lot all at once. I feel like maybe we could start with a smaller issue. heard that your right pinky toe was bothering you. Maybe we could start with that and work up to the decapitated head. And I'm like, okay. And the thing is, they don't solve the issue for you. They hand you some gauze, like a knife and a needle and thread, and they walk you through how to do the procedure. And you do the procedure, and it goes well. You leave the therapist's office, or you leave the doctor's office a little discouraged because you still don't have a head, but a little encouraged because now your right pinky toe doesn't hurt as bad. And you think to yourself, hey, if I just keep going back to just keep going back to the doctors one time a week, every week, for 8 years, maybe eventually I'll get to my decapitated head. Because like the game Hangman, you're gonna run out of body parts to fix. And so you do eventually. You go to the doctors once a week for every week, and you get to that head, and eventually you do get your head. But it's not the same, right? Like, it can't be the same. It's just missing an eyeball and your left ear, but it's pretty much the same, so you're fine. And that is what therapy is like. It's going into a therapist's office, and you say to your therapist, hi, therapist, there you go, hi, patient. You go into your therapist's office with daddy issues, and you say to your therapist, hi, therapist, and they say, hi, patient, what can I do for you? And the therapist says, or what can I do for you? And you say, one for daddy issues, please. And they say, ooh, that is a pretty big ask. I think we should start with something a little less fragile. I heard that your friend Kimmy bullied you in middle school. Maybe we can start there for a while. So you start talking about your friend Kimmy who bullied you, your enemy, Kimmy. But they don't fix it for you. They just hand you some tissues, a book, and some sage advice as you work on it yourself. And then you leave the therapist's office, and you leave a little discouraged because you still have daddy issues. But at least you're a little less mad at Kimmy. And you're like, eventually, if I go once a week to therapy, once a week every week for the next 8 years, eventually we'll get to my daddy issues. And eventually you do. Eventually you do get to your daddy issues. I mean, there's still a lot of messed up stuff, but at least you don't hate men. And that was also improvised. It's true though, it's true. The patriarchy gets ya. Just kidding. And so I really endorse therapy. I think everyone should go to therapy. But you know who I really think should go to therapy? Ashley B. And you might be thinking to yourself, who is Ashley B? Is she a politician? Is she like a troubled pop star? No. Ashley B was my 3 year ago work bully. She had some issues. Mostly that she didn't like me and she refused to do her job. Ashley B, Ashley Bee. The name of don't worry, the spelling of the name has been changed to protect the innocent. Dude, I'm just kidding. The entire name was changed. I wish I could tell you the name like so badly. I want to so badly because it sounds exactly what you would think a Disney bully name would sound like. Like if you just think about that name in your head right now, I'm 99% sure that you caught it correct. Anyway, so Ashley hated me, I hated her, she didn't do her job, and she walked. So we're working in healthcare, right? We're working with vulnerable adults where it's very important to be very good at your job and to have a tender, loving heart and to just do your job. And Ashley would do her job, but it would, and part of her job, but it would be so poorly done that I would have to backtrack and do her work and my work. So it's just double the amount of work for me. I'm gonna drink some water now because I'm pretty parched, so enjoy this moment of awkward silence. Sponsored by great value. All right, so my point being, I hate Ashley being. She would not do her job, and she would do it so poorly that I would have to backtrack and I would have to do her work for her again. And it got to the point that she bullied me. She was so mean. She berated me. She did not like me because I did my job, and she got snarky when people reported her, and I did because I love all my other colleagues, and it became apparent after a while, after she got reported several times, that management did not care, and they were not going to do anything about it. So I was getting pretty sick and tired that I took matters into my own hands. It's very dangerous, but it paid off. She quit eventually. Just like 3 years later, but I like to think that I had something to do with it. So okay, I want to preface this by saying I don't condone taking advantage of the system, okay? It's not what I'm trying to convey, but one day I said to my other colleague, and I said to her, you know what, I would rather work alone than with Ashley B. It's becoming a problem, a serious problem. And that's when the idea clicked. Again, I do not endorse taking advantage of the system. That's not what I'm about. But I maybe have gone up to Ashley B before, and I said to her, Ashley B, do you know that you can be making more on welfare than you can at this job? And she says, I've thought about it. And I whispered, maybe think about it a little longer. It was really bad, and you might be judging me for that. But also I'd like to remind you that who's paying for Ashley to sit on a couch and not do her job is me. It's me. All of my tax dollars are going to that. I'm pretty sure I called them, they confirmed. And so I feel valid in that. So imagine how bad it was working with this Ashley B, because I was so sick of working with her that I would rather, one, done her entire job, which I was already doing anyway, but whatever, and I would rather pay her to sit home and not do her job and do the entire job myself. So, anyway, someone's nodding like they've had that experience before. My mom, she has. Yesterday, episode number 3, my mother, everybody. All right, so Mom, maybe you can open next time with that story. It sounds like a good story. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so besides being terrible at her job, Ashley B was also just a weird person who would say random things out of pocket, like the fact, okay, also I want to preface, she watched a bunch of horror movies, like so many horror movies, and I cannot stand, I'm so sorry, perfect. So she would watch so many horror movies, which just added a whole layer to her personality. And she drove a minivan. She didn't have kids or anything. She just had a minivan. And that just already gives serial killer vibes. She watched horror movies. She would say things out of pocket, about how she had 12 axes in her car, in the back of her van. And that scared me I don't know why, we're still talking about it in therapy. It's so rough. The thing about too that scared me, that terrified me, was we would work pretty much the same shifts, and we would work 2 to 10, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., and that was our shift. So when we got outside into the open wilderness, it was dark outside. It was very dark. And we had the scariest employee parking lot that was very dimly lit and facing towards the woods. So every night after Ashley would leave early, because of course she would, I would make my way out. I would say my thoughts and prayers for myself as I would walk out to this parking lot, and I would walk in silence, and quickly and briskly I would walk to my car and fear that Ashley would be hiding behind her tire with 12 axes, ready to get me. Also, I would like to ask the question that you've all probably been wondering: who needs 12 axes? Who needs 12? I barely need one axe. I barely need one axe. Yeah, and so eventually we went our separate ways. She quit, I quit, and I was like, I'm done, I'm safe. The one person who I thought maybe would not want me in this world anymore is gone far away, and I'm safe. It's good, it's just me in the world now. Except one day I was outside in my lawn, and I saw Ashley B's van driving by, and I was like, oh my gosh, is that Ashley B? And it was. And she drove by, and I don't know if she saw me, but just in case, I texted all my loved ones, and I was like, hey, just in case, I'm not saying anything, I don't want to allude to anything, but if I go missing, if you find me with 12 axes in my back, maybe check out Ashley B. I don't want to hurt anybody, but she knows where I live now. She knows where I live, and it's very scary. Please send help. Also, please let the blonde Sarah Johnson community know they are not the brightest, and we'll all just show up to the police, and I will never be seen again. And so my brothers are so supportive. They text me and they're like, hey, I heard that, like, okay, like, backtracking, like, why do you need 12 axes? Like, what else do you have in your car? Like, is there, like, you had 12 apostles? You got 12 apostles there, and you just give each one, and now you have an army, or like 1.5 spiders or something? So I text my brothers, and I tell them, hey, like, just so you know, Ashley B knows where I live. If I ever go missing, just know. And they're like, we got you, we'll protect you, tell us what she has. And I'm like, well, she has 12 axes. And they're like, okay, cool, we can handle that. I'm like, what else? And I'm like, maybe 12 apostles, I don't know. And they're like, that's a little weirder, but we can handle that. And I say, and they're like, what else? And like, 1.5 spider who are 1.5 spiders who are also yielding axes. And that's when I don't get any replies to my texts. They're long gone. They're in Canada, and I am left to fend with one Ashley B and 1.5 axe-yielding spiders. And that's where I die. Anyway, the point being is that I think Ashley B should go to therapy. It should be like surfing or something. And really, like, healthcare isn't that bad. Like, healthcare is very good. It's very fun. I love it. Healthcare workers are heroes. Can we get a round of applause for healthcare? And also, mothers. Mothers are also heroes. Give a round of applause for mothers. But not like superheroes, except my mom. My mom's a superhero. Yeah, I'm going to tell you why. All right, so my mom used to work at this small, she already knows where this is going. She works at the small farm supply store, and one day she told me this story, they have a small meeting where they're like, hey, where the manager is like, hey, so just so you know, we've had some petty thieves go around, petty thievery, and just be on the lookout for people who come in with empty backpacks or like cargo pants, like really. Yeah, leave the room. That's really funny. Be aware. There's just people who will come in and stuff their pockets and their backpacks, and they'll leave just with all of our stuff. And so just be on the lookout. You don't have to do anything. We want you to be safe. Just be aware. And what my mom heard was, if you come across someone stuffing stuff into their cargo pants or their backpack, be prepared to give up your life for this minimum minimum wage job and chase after them into the parking lot and yell, "Get back here!" And that's exactly what my mother did. She sees this man come into the store with cargo pants, and he's about to leave, and his pants are obviously a little bit heavier than when he came into the store, and so she says to him, "Sir, I'm going to need you to empty out your pockets." And he says, "Yes, ma'am, immediately I will do that." Just kidding, no, he booked it immediately. And right after, so did my mom. My mom booked after him and yelled, "Get back here!" The best part of this story, he turned around. For 1 second, he turned around, but he turned around. And I was like, "Mother, explain." And she's like, "I don't know, the mom voice is a powerful thing." The mom voice is a powerful thing. What are we doing, guys? We could have been catching bad guys so much cheaper. The law enforcement, get them out of here. Moms will do it for nothing, but just to see their kids happy and a hug, because that's all they want. Every time you ask them for Christmas, they're just, I want to see my kids happy, and they just want to see their citizens happy. Can you imagine that show? I think that would be such a great show. Like, I was a mom for the FBI, or like that'd just be so fun. Can you imagine? Like, moms are just bringing in criminal after criminal into the precinct, and the police, who are now just receptionists, are like, "Hey, what is going on here? Like, what is this? How are they getting so many bad guys?" And Larry's like, "It's the mom sonic boom. Have you not heard the mom sonic boom? It's getting all these bad guys." And I just imagine that they, also this guy who ran out and he comes back in, he ran out again. And I just like to imagine that when he came back, when he ran away and he heard, "Get back here," he heard his mom from middle school, and he's like, "If I don't get back to dinner in 5 seconds, she's gonna beat me." And so he turns around, and then he gets to the door, and he's like, "Wait a minute, you're not my mom," and then runs away. And that's how he gets away. So the mom sonic boom is bringing down all the bad guys. We're all safe, right? And I just imagine the mom bounty hunters go into the field, and they see a brawl taking place, and they're just like, "Hey, stop beating each other up!" And they're like, and they just stand at attention, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, ma'am." And then she's like, "Go to your separate corners." And they go into the corners, and they cry for 27 years. Just kidding. So they're crying, and they're just giving mom a heck of a time. She's like, do I have to get this is my get along shirt, and she puts it over them, and they are just huddled in the back seat of mom's minivan, and she's just seething mad. She's just like driving, and she's just like seething mad. She's not saying anything because it's the Midwest, and we don't say how we're feeling. We just avoid that. We just do the passive aggression thing. It's real. And, like, I don't know. I feel like I could be onto something with this. Like, why are we still giving money to the police? We could just be giving hugs and kisses and world peace to mothers, and they would take care of all of our problems. But for real, the epidemic of passive aggression we have in the Midwest is just, I can't tolerate it. Just tell me how you're feeling, man. But so like we don't talk about our feelings. We just talk about like cheese. And I'm not undermining the power of a good cheese conversation. In fact, I had several months ago, I had a real good conversation with my friend about cheese, and it took an interesting turn. It did. I said to my friend, "You know what? I can get down with some real good cheese, but some of them, just can't get behind. Like, some of them just taste like feet. And she's like, okay, blue cheese is an acquired taste. What did you just say it to be? Blue cheese is an acquired taste? I didn't even say blue cheese. I didn't even mention blue cheese, and you're just, blue cheese is an acquired taste. Which, I guess, because that's how acquired tastes work, is that you just eat something until it isn't good at you. You eat something bad until it tastes good. Girl, do not lower your standards. Why would you possibly do this? Why would you force yourself to eat blue cheese when fresh mozzarella exists? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any, also, just in general, don't use that phrase anymore. Acquired taste, it's such a dumb quote. It's such dumb, unless I can think of one possibility. If you are sitting in your seats tonight and you are thinking, Sarah, your comedy just isn't for me, I would say to you, it's acquired taste. Thank you.